Hello, everyone. Welcome to Untold History, where we explore the key moments that shaped civilizations. Today, we delve into one of the most tragic and significant episodes for the people of Israel, the Siege of Jerusalem by the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar II in 587 BC, an event that culminated in the destruction of Solomon's temple and the mass exile of the Jewish people to Babylon. This event was not only a physical and material catastrophe, but it left an indelible mark on the identity, spirituality, and cultural memory of the Jewish people. During the 6th century BC, the Kingdom of Judah was in a precarious situation and increasingly vulnerable due to constant tensions and conflicts with the powerful Babylonian Empire. For years, Babylon, with Nebuchadnezzar II at its head, had extended its rule over much of the ancient Near East, consolidating itself as a powerful imperial force. Nebuchadnezzar, seeking to strengthen his control over the region and consolidate his empire, turned his attention to Judah and Jerusalem, a strategic city both for its location and for its cultural and religious value. After a series of rebellions and conflicts that involved a challenge to Babylonian authority, Nebuchadnezzar made the decision to lay siege to the city of Jerusalem. This siege would not be a short or simple episode. It was a long and devastating confrontation that left a deep mark on Jewish history. Judah's rebellion began to take shape some time ago when King Jehoiakim, son of Josiah, decided to challenge Babylon's rule. Initially, Nebuchadnezzar had allowed Judah to remain a vassal kingdom under Jehoiakim's administration. However, growing conflicts and tensions led Judah to try to free itself from this yoke, a situation that Nebuchadnezzar perceived as a betrayal and an unacceptable challenge. It was then that he decided to act decisively to quell any resistance and ensure total control of the region. Nebuchadnezzar's troops marched on Jerusalem and, in 588, began a siege that lasted for almost 2 years, in which the population was subjected to extreme food deprivation and unbearable conditions to resist. The siege was brutal. The Babylonians surrounded the city, cutting off supply routes for food and basic resources. With no possibility of receiving help from outside, the inhabitants of Jerusalem found themselves trapped and in a situation of deep despair. The city walls, which had been built to withstand attacks and sieges, offered a temporary defense, but were not sufficient to counter Babylonian military strength. As time passed, the situation within the city became increasingly critical, with hunger and disease spreading among the population and weakening both the citizens and the soldiers charged with the city's defense. As the siege dragged on, conditions deteriorated at an alarming rate. Historical sources mention that the famine in Jerusalem reached extreme levels, forcing people to resort to desperate practices to survive. Finally, in 587, after months of resistance, the Babylonians managed to breach the walls of Jerusalem. Nebuchadnezzar's troops advanced into the city, taking control of its streets and facing the exhausted and weakened defenders. The violence and destruction that followed the capture of the city were relentless. In a symbolic and devastating act, the Babylonians destroyed Solomon's temple, a spiritual and cultural center that was the most important symbol of the Jewish people's religious identity. The destruction of the temple meant not only the loss of a place of worship, but also a deep blow to the heart of Jewish identity and spirituality, as the temple represented the direct link between the people and their God. In addition to the physical destruction of Jerusalem, Nebuchadnezzar ordered the mass deportation of the Jewish population to Babylon. Thousands of people were torn from their homeland and taken into exile in an unknown place, where they would be forced to adapt to a new reality. This exile, known as the Babylonian Exile, had a devastating impact on the lives of the Jews, who now found themselves in a strange land, surrounded by a different culture and religion. However, despite these adverse circumstances, the Jewish people demonstrated a remarkable capacity for resilience. Far from their land and their temple, the Jews began a process of deep reflection on their identity, their history, and their faith. In Babylon, exile forced the Jewish people to rethink their relationship with God and to look for new ways to keep their identity alive. Although they were in a foreign land, they strove to preserve their traditions, sacred texts, and religious practices. In fact, many scholars consider the Babylonian exile to be a period of deep theological and cultural reflection, in which texts that would later become part of the Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible, began to be collected and preserved. This process of collecting and writing allowed Jews to keep their identity alive and build a common narrative that reminded them of their special relationship with God and their role in the world. The teachings of the prophets, which emerged in this context, also played a crucial role in preserving Jewish identity. Prophets such as Ezekiel and Jeremiah became figures of comfort and hope for the people in exile. Through their messages, the prophets reminded the people that their relationship with God did not depend on a physical place, such as the temple, but on a constant fidelity to God's commandments and teachings. When the Babylonian Empire was conquered by the Persian Empire under the leadership of Cyrus the Great in 539, the situation of the Jewish people changed dramatically. Cyrus, in a gesture of shrewd and tolerant policy, allowed the exiled Jews to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple. This decree, known as the Edict of Cyrus, was a pivotal moment in Jewish history as it offered the people the opportunity to return to their land and restore their communal and religious life. The return to Jerusalem, however, was not without its challenges. The city was in ruins, and the rebuilding process was arduous and protracted, but the Jewish people were determined to rebuild both their city and their temple. Over the centuries, the story of Jerusalem's fall, exile, and return has been a source of inspiration and reflection for the Jewish people. This event is commemorated every year on the day of Tisha B'Av, a day of mourning in which Jews remember the destruction of the temple and other disasters that have marked their history. Tisha B'Av is a reminder of the challenges the people have faced over the centuries, but also of their resilience and their ability to find hope and redemption even in the darkest of times. The story of the siege of Jerusalem and the Babylonian exile has also left a lasting legacy in Jewish theology and literature. This period of trial and suffering forged a Jewish identity that went beyond geographical borders and laid the foundation for Judaism as we know it today. Through the experience of exile, the Jewish people learned to value and preserve their teachings and traditions, and to develop a faith that could endure even in the most adverse circumstances. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the past to explore the siege of Jerusalem and its profound aftermath. Don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this video to help more people learn the secrets of the untold story. Until next time.